Good afternoon, dear participants of today's meeting, which is devoted to the development of remote territories of the SCO countries. We are now discussing the Bank of the best practices. Let me introduce myself. My name is Natalia Trunova. I'm a Vice President for the Center of Strategic Developments, Spatial Developments. And that is why I'm moderating this discussion today, because we are involved in different territories and mechanisms of development. Within 6 years, Belarus participates the SCO and BRICS members, and we thank the Republic of Bashkortostan for wonderful reception and interesting discussions. I hope that they're going to be fruitful. We have a hybrid offline and online format, which is predetermined by the conditions. So I would like to introduce the participants today, online and offline. Mironov Igor, the mayor of Salavat in Bashkortostan region, Ekaterina Krikunova, deputy for investment policy, Sergei Gavrilov, director for the Department of Transport and Infrastructure project of ICOM. Shall we see online participants, or we just hope that online participants will see us? Natalia Stapran, Director of the Department of Multi-Level Economic Cooperation and Special Projects of the Ministry of Economic Development of the Russian Federation. Evgeny Grabchak, Deputy Minister of Energy of the Russian Federation. Hello, Evgeny. Vladislav Mirsan, Head of the Gyoskan Group. Jit Kaur, Director for the Eastern Regional Office of the Associated Chambers of Commerce and Industry of Industry. Dmitry Zemlyansky, Chairman of the Committee for the Production Force BAPT. Mr. Petrosyan, aid to the limits. You are limited to 7 minutes, and I feel like we will not have a discussion because we are going to have a plenary session everyone will want to go to. So therefore, it's going to be a dynamic session. 28th of October, there was one of the most important events of the SCO countries. Russia demonstrated its experience in developing remote territories. We know that the distances we have in the Russian Federation, and it's a very ill-developed infrastructure, and different territories will have different infrastructures and resources. And Russia presented its practice in this very difficult year. In this year when the pandemic worsened the situation in the remote territories. It presented the digital technologies available in the Bank of Solution. It helped to support people, small business, so that the crisis didn't strike so hard. This bank has best practices of the SCO countries in agriculture, education, healthcare, and other sectors. And that is why my first question is to Natalia Stapran, Director of the Department of Economics Development of the Ministry of Economic Development of Russia. How are you going to develop further? Because we know that the solutions you have presented were developed before the pandemic as well as during the pandemic, but they became most relevant during the pandemic. What will happen to this bank of solution? How are you planning to improve it and disseminate? Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak. The topic itself of this meeting is very relevant because our ministry and department, within and without SCO and BRICS and Asian Pacific region, we have started the discussion of this problem of developing remote territories, agricultural, rural territories. As Natalia said it right, the idea was born earlier than the pandemic, and what happened in the 2020, it became very relevant, and it directed us to further development of this initiative. Let me say that I do not have a good answer to your question. And during this session, we would like to see what other experts say, because our major task was to collect the best practices. First of all, understanding that the future is not in individual solutions, and the solutions should be interconnected. We see how regulation issues are becoming prominent. And it's important that the countries approach technologies coherently, so that we discussed what we have at the initial stages. This was the main task in our Bank of Solution. You mentioned that we have presented the Russian best practices. We can even show you on the slide. Please show the first and the second slide. We just show how our bank looked like. Could you please put on our presentation? Anyone? You should have this presentation. We have tried to make solutions in groups, to put solutions in groups, and see what our partners have in this regard. We understand now that the SCO is a very large international group of neighboring countries. When we develop rural territories, it's important who your neighbors are, because the development with the neighboring countries becomes even more relevant than the cooperation with the center of your own country. And this Bank of Best Solutions draws us to conclude that we should know what our neighbors do, we should understand what technical standards and regulations they use. And I'm sure that the next step, next year, is to put... Thank you for the slide. This is how our bank looks like. It is online. We are ready to share it. We continue. It's a living document. We continue improving and expanding it. We had an idea to establish a digital platform. Maybe Petrosyan will comment on that, but because we understand it should be substantial investment. But having this, if we have technologies in agriculture, in healthcare, education, the Sberbank mobile office is an important experience. It's not relevant to invest into solutions a lot without sharing with neighbors. If we can, we would like to establish a resource platform, a unified one for SEO, but we also understand that the key task is the integration of the systems into a unified platform. And we can switch to the second slide so that we see how the different... We can see here the spheres where we have divided our bank into. These are 5 different sets of solutions. We should discuss the principle and approaches in infrastructure and finances and education and healthcare so that we could integrate on a new level when we are not just talking about the trade of goods, but the regulation in general. Maybe this was one of our main tasks. I hope that in some work groups within the SEO we will be able to agree on some terms, common terms with our partners. Our partners are ready to answer questions during this session. I would like to thank again Bashkortostan for starting this discussion, because we know that this region has a major experience in the development of rural territories. I know that you have a unified program for the development of rural territories. So I hope to see new ideas today in certain spheres. Maybe Evgeny Grabchak will propose to single out energy cooperation as a separate field. Maybe we have things to discuss. So your final answer to your question should be obtained today.
Yes, it's a very important thing that you single out that any bank or any platform created on the ground of this bank won't lose its idea and won't turn into just a picture, but would be applicable. And initially, the platform must be created so that people who use it would be able to implement it on their territories. So I would like to give floor to Sergei Gavrilov, since it was mentioned that infrastructure is the key element of this bank. So I would like to find out, how do you take into consideration specifics of the rural territories in the big infrastructural projects that your company is dealing with, how this problematics is existing, how do you work with it? Thank you for invitation, even though we're not a member of SME, but nevertheless would like to give our opinion. Of course, infrastructure is a driver of any economic growth, doesn't matter the size of the territory, and indeed, world has the same problems in Russia or in the world. In conditions of pandemics, the world faced certain challenges that we have to turn into possibilities. So COVID and post-COVID times, the infrastructure will define the quality of living of individuals. Without roads, it's impossible right now, we understand it. So paying attention to infrastructural projects would take first priority. So in our work, we noticed that the value of people's communication is substituted with the value of infrastructure, because we want to have fast internet, power supply, accessible healthcare, and so on, so on, so on. So, can you give another slide, please? I would say a few words about the company, why we are here. ICOM works in Russia for more than 25 years, and we have a huge experience in implementation of infrastructural projects. We are the world-leading engineering company in the world. And in Russia, we take the best technical consultant in the sphere of private-state partnership projects. We see a huge potential of this project on the territory of the Russian Federation, and that's why we're still here. And the success of our business is made of involvement of local communities. Being on the territories in Bashkiria, for example, we try to attract local people, and it helps to solve ecological, work, labor questions, and so on. So, in our point of view, the successful of infrastructure project depends on involvement of local communities into this project. Next slide, please. Today, all regions in the whole world faced competitiveness for the human capital. If we worked previously where we lived, so today I live in one region, work in another, and give presentations in third. Today this value goes on the first front. And here the key factor is the quality infrastructure. If the region is ready to give good quality infrastructure so the people will live in it. Here I speak about the infrastructure without separating it into huge projects, 800-kilometer road or kindergarten in some Russian rural area. I will speak not about how to do, but what to do, because today on the front line is the quality of infrastructure. Next slide, please. In this thing, we see a huge potential for optimization, the quality of infrastructure projects, first of all, because process of planning, designing, risk management, changes management are the key elements that missed sometimes by the organizers of projects. And it's not a secret that all you know, the project of East Exit, we face changes on a daily basis into the planning. And if it's not made in due time, the project loses in money, in time, and so on, so on. So can we have another slide? I would say a few words about what is happening on federal level. Today, if we speak about the quality of infrastructural projects, a state corporation, VPREP, developed a system of certification. It's called IRIS. I was co-developer of this system, so if you are interested how it works in practice, I will give you a few consultations. So every project gets international certification, and having this certificate, the project gets preferences on territories, lower more profitable investment, and so on. When you implement the project on some remote locations, we face a problem of non-competence of local authorities. So I would like to draw your attention that the policy of our company is that we not import competencies. We don't bring some foreign experts and work on the territory. No, we upbring the local staff. We communicate with local communities and share knowledge and forming future for our next generations. And another slide, please. And I would like to address to all people who manage infrastructure projects. Please communicate with business. Please find some common technical solutions, because in communication we can mutually create the future that would be interesting in 20, 30, 40 years. Thank you. Thank you very much for your speech. I give floor to Evgeny Kravchuk, Prime Minister of Energy of Russian Federation. So we had heard a lot of times the word infrastructure, its importance, and we understand, there is specifics that not always the whole infrastructural block is presented fully in these remote territories, and later we'll have questions concerning investment policy, so what affects the possibility of attraction of private investment. So in your opinion, what is the way it must be done, this energy supply of remote and diverse in terms of economy, in terms of raw materials extraction, and we understand that the energy complex for our country is dealing with two major functions. So number one is comfortable life, comfortable living conditions, comfortable living environment for population, plus economic development of the whole economy by means of the infrastructure. It's number one task, and the second task is to supply the budget, the development, spatial, dimensional, territorial that we are planning. And without export of energy resources and without this support would be impossible. And Natalia, you are right that we need to define what and how this infrastructure must be developed, how to live in that, because every consumer needs a special infrastructure and requirements. These infrastructures are defined by these consumers. We have, let's say, the south of Russian, southern territories of Russian, Moscow agglomeration, St. Petersburg agglomeration. So we create a very comfortable urban environment for living of people. And of course, we take into consideration the requirements of these people for the quality of this infrastructure, supply of gas, electricity, oil, and so on, oil products. And we understand that the northern territories, we also have northern territories, Far East, Eastern Siberia, where we have major deposits of raw materials, where we have a northern way. And we understand that without developing these territories, without exploring them, probably the development, further development of our country is impossible. And we understand that these solutions that are working for the south of Russia, they are not working with the north or east of Russia. And this bank allows to compile what our colleagues and partners have thought for their territories, for their agglomerations, and for their territorial development, and to combine them and compile them in terms of the development of the infrastructure of the Russian Federation. So it's the answer to your first question. And of course, we understand the infrastructure created by us in Soviet times during industrialization, this unified system of gas supply, energy supply, pipelines aimed at export. This is the basis which we will never get rid of, and we will use it and exploit it, and optimize at the same time. Plus these huge projects on allocation of energy infrastructure, it's Eastern Siberia, Far East, Arctic zone, and of course we will form new clusters of oil and gas, mineral resources centers, oil and chemistry. LPGs is developing right now. The system of transportation of energy resources is first of all northern seaway, which gives us advantage on the transport. And if we speak about uses of technologies, yes, of course we have enough fine questions of our energy security and independence, and of course those things that are directly affecting this independence. These competences must be created first of all and implemented inside the Russian Federation. Of course, we speak the system of management of technological processes. We speak about technologies that are not created in Russia. Right now, it's the gas turbines, technologies on extraction of hardly produced raw materials, and so on, so on, so on. And of course, in this case, we should develop our own competencies, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't take into consideration the scientific results of work that are used in the world in general. And if people are ready to share this experience, and of course the approach will be separated. On the one hand, we don't need to be closed and to sit in isolation, and the new technologies must enter our country, and this competence will allow to optimize the architecture, technological architecture of infrastructure, of energy complex. It must be, but at the same time, the critical technologies on which the management relies, independence relies. Of course, we need to be very precise and accurate, be, let's say, dependent on solutions that our partners offer us. Sergey, thank you very much.
Thank you for your speech, for your report. Thank you for providing us a general picture. Even though you and I, we all understand that sometimes in the Moscow agglomerate there are territories which are so not infrastructurally developed that sometimes you think that you are somewhere very, very far away. So the issue of what we understand by remote, do we mean that they are far from this center, or do we mean the quality of infrastructural development this or that territory would have and the risks that it would have to sustain? We're going to discuss this issue. Yaskan is a participant of that company. Vladislav Nisan, what are the results? Are you planning to include anything into this bank? Good day, thank you very much. I'm happy to see you. Yaskan company has implemented many infrastructural projects, and now we're doing some projects, and one of the largest infrastructural programs is the air survey in the production of voltage lines. And what Yevgeny Grabchak has just said, the Deputy Minister for Energy. There are some issues. There were some issues during this project when air shooting of the voltage lines and strategic sites is very sensitive in terms of governmental safety and security. We had some issues in terms of data and processing, of handling of this data and the using of this data. But along with this project, there were 7,000 linear kilometers. We have also made a air photo taking of roads. It was around 14,000 line kilometers around Russia. So these two
тиражировать дальше и на их основе предлагать какие-то решения.
These are the projects that we can take into consideration and provide some solutions based on these projects. Let us go back to the territorial sector. Ekaterina, Bashkortostan has a positive dynamic. It's top 10 best investment climate in Russia. And given that there are remote territories in Bashkortostan, what do you do in this region? How do you develop your remote regions? What does your region do? What tools do you use? What, in your opinion, is the key for the region? I'm happy to greet everything. Indeed, our region is developing in all the directions. We're holding investment ratings. We're 9th in investment climate in Russia. And sustainable development of the region is one of the primary tasks. We're following the international experience in this respect, the initiatives in terms of regional developments. Nonetheless, we have certain specifics. For example, the Chinese Republic provides best practices to study. They're making some infrastructural projects. And for the development of our remote territories, we can borrow the wholesome approach and specific approach for certain remote areas. We have 63 municipalities in the region, including 5 primary economic developments, special economic parks, technical parks. We have certain regional and municipal tax reductions. We improve our legislation. In the current situation, we have improved the support to investors because investors should be preferential for any region, and the regional head and municipalities heads should be ready to help the investors to solve the issues. And in this region, the head of the region holds an investment fund invested on hour where the head of the region meets the major investments and businessmen. Let me give you several examples of the positive outcomes of this approach. We are relaunching the monocities. We have 71 regions in the special economic zones, and we have attracted over 44 billion rubles. This approach is a very handy tool which allows to create production chains, improve economic stability and sustainability, make some new jobs. We are following the efficiency of such special economic zones. For instance, in Belebey, we have seen the increase of population, and in Kumirtau we have increased the number of people who come to this city. And of course, these measures are important for improving the city-urban space. In 2011, we have adopted integrated program for the development of the different regional parts of the region. They are aimed at creating comfortable living conditions and balanced social-economical development. and sustainable use of nature. As we implement these 2011 programs, the region decided to prolong these programs, and the target approach, which was used during this, when we were developing these programs, it helped to help businesses, local businesses, and in order to enforce these positive effects, we are developing the cooperation between the authorities who are responsible for attainment of these aims. We understand that investors are not attracted to projects in remote areas if there are no benefits for them. Let me give you an example. We have implemented the smart specialization approach. We have developed Yangantao Geopark, and when we developed geoparks Yangantao and Toratao, we have developed the tourist cluster, synchronized tourist infrastructure, ethnic centers where our guests would want to have some rest. Together with the municipality, we are working on the bank of potential investors. We understand that the geopark development correlates with the removal of the disbalance of municipalities' development. In this region, we have all the conditions for the investment development. We try to reduce the differences between the districts. First of all, it's important that the authorities work cooperatively. It's important to have a strategy, but it's also important to implement these projects. Bashkortostan develops the tools to make remote territories more comfortable for people. We will improve the economy and business climate for these districts, because this complex of measures will allow to improve the people's lives in remote territories. Thank you for a systemic description of what the region is doing in this respect. Therefore, I'm giving floor to Igor Mironov, the mayor of Salavat City, one of the industrial drivers in the region. Apart from what you do for the investment climate in the city, now cities are not only art infrastructures, but also social and entertainment. So social and entertainment environments, not only just jobs, how they're all important for today's city. So what do you do in this respect? What do you do for, what infrastructures do you create in the city for leisure? And how can an international experience help you in this respect? Thank you, Natalia. Thank you for inviting me to the forum, for helping me to share. We are not remote territory, but of course it depends on what you mean by remote. As for the investment attractiveness, we have a systemic approach in our city. We do everything possible to attract investors, our entrepreneurs who are ready to work in Salavat. To this end, we have entrepreneur hours when we help entrepreneurs to implement their projects. We have a business center of Bashkortostan. It's a unique platform where we grow our entrepreneurs and give them very beneficial conditions for business. And we take their hand and lead them from the implementation, from the idea emergency to implementations. We have association and committee of entrepreneurs. We have a correlation center for entrepreneurs and a number of people involved in this are involved in this issue because it is one of the priority parts of our activity. I wanted to say in my
коллеги, только вот именно не в таком вот хард-подходе, о чем вы сказали, да, не в глобальном, может быть, масштабном таком виде, а в более
I would like to talk about the local ideas. As you know, Salavat is an ALGA, special economic zone. Unfortunately, Salavat is not a part of the perimeter of these zones. So, on the one hand, this is an advantage, but on the other hand, it's a disadvantage. So, near our city, there are most attractive conditions for business. So, we have to offer unique conditions for our entrepreneurs who will believe us and will invest into business in Salavat. To this end, we create infrastructure, and one of the large-scale projects which we have almost finished is the industrial park in Salavat. Some general information about it. If you know, Salavat is the third largest city in Bashkortostan. It was started in 1948 as a working village near the refinery. Today this is Gazprom Neftekhim Salavat. In 1954 we became a settlement, and soon we're going to have an anniversary. Today, Salavat is a major industrial center of Bashkortostan with unique competences in oil refinery, petroleum, machine engineering, and leading industrial companies in the market. Just some figures: 160 kilometers from Ufa, in good investment activity. Of course, in many respects, this is due to Gazprom Neftekhim Salavat, but even without this, we have quite handsome parameters. Compared to the rest of the region, we have higher salary per month, and we have good tax funds. We have good potential for future development. We have three important factors that contribute to the development. First of all, it's geographical location. We are in the southern part of the region. We have Stelitamaka and Ishimbai near us, Ufa-Orenburg trunk. So logistics-wise, it's good for business development in this region. Historically, since the Soviet Union, Salavat has had successful industrial companies. Apart from Salavat Neftekhim, we have Salavat Glass, catalyst plant, hydraulics, and a number of companies that are well known in the local market and that contribute to the development of Salavat and who attract new investors. We have 18 educational centers, and we have a large branch of Ufa State Petroleum Technical University, who provides us with experts, local experts. Salavat doesn't have its own district, so that's why we are developing within this municipal district of Salavat. And on the territory of the city, we have a large industrial park, which used to be optics plant, which was famous in the USSR. It produces binoculars and different optical items and associated products. It has good logistics, close to the trunks, has all the factors it has all the factors of successful development. It is over 100,000 square meters. Industrial plants, industrial buildings take up 55,000 square meters. It has all the necessary infrastructure, which is important in terms of utilities and power. We have everything there, like water supplies, drainage, power, optic cables. We meet all the contemporary standards. We have 3 huge houses which allow to store any production, some cycles of production, batch production. These are open spaces for industry, which can be left the way they are, or they can be divided into smaller spaces. One of the buildings has been well restored, and it is best offer in Bashkortostan in terms of comfortable production. It has a canteen, it has shower rooms, offices, together with furniture and computers. We have residents for this industrial park. The main one is the tax benefit. They are exempted of property taxes, participation in the target programs at the federal level, where you can obtain some more benefits. Today we're filling this platform with the residents. We have a production of shoe covers, furniture producers, warehouses, but the potential is still quite significant. Therefore, I would like to take the opportunity to invite the potential residents to use this unique opportunity to enter this market. Thank you.
Thank you very much for a very interesting presentation. And you said a very important thing, that it's a part of agglomeration. And then you would like, if we have some time left for discussion, how you use agglomeration effects for your development. And right now I would like to give floor to Mikhail Petrosyan, digital economy, because the role of it has increased, because we moved on online education, online meetings, and so on. And we understand everything here. But for remote locations, remote territories, for a long period of time, the formats have been discussed and implemented of distant medicine or telemedicine and rendering different kind of state services. Mikhail, please, do you highlight this category or single out this category that need specific measures in your practice, and what is presented right now by our Russian companies could be enlisted into the Bank of Solutions that we're discussing today. Thank you very much, Natalia. Colleagues, I'd like to greet all of you. Yes, of course, the digit has a huge, of course, effect today, and it's hard to say something else. To add something to that, I'd like to start with grateful words to Minister of Economic Development for being a driver of this topic on international platforms. And Natalia Sapran said that the document, it's a living document because the topic is living and is moving actively on different international levels. What we have as a result, and what is, I hope, a long-term thing, the Bank of Solution is a very applicable format and can be used as a starting point for discussion and for experience exchange. And I hope that events like today will continue in the future. And I'm very grateful to our Indian colleague that is together with us, and it's a very important element when we have opportunity to share our experience and to have a feedback and hear experience of the colleagues that we have from our SCO partner countries. So I understand the time limitations that we have. We all know that the summer of this year we had a new aim, digital transformation, and we have two main indicators that are relevant to the topic we discussed today. It's the increase of the share of the services up to 95% in digit, and wideband access to the internet up to 97%. These two indicators, they deepened into the new national program, Digital Economy, and digital state management cover the system of solutions that the government offers for provision of remote territories with the necessary digital and realization of necessary digital demands. All is aimed so that our big territory, our country would have, and regions would have evenly distributed digital coverage, so to say. So we see that if we speak about the digits, we have two huge tracks: services and infrastructure. So we spoke about them, and it's very important. I will start with services, and then we'll speak about infrastructure. Of course, if we speak about services, a lot of implemented the services infrastructure, and the Bank of Solutions has its, and of course the central and the world meaning has the service of state service, or gosuslugi, that we have in Russian Federation. And as an example, in 2018, we had 68 million, or maybe a bit more, of citizens used this service. At the end of 2019, 103 million of citizens use it. I will be happy to understand the totals of this year, because this year the number of users of the portal increased because the government had to react to the pandemic's effect, and a lot of things was implemented on the grounds of this portal. What is important is that these stories are implemented together with the government. It's not only business. Of course, we have Rostelecom present as a company that helps together with the state to provide this. On the basis of this portal, on the ground of this portal, we have a number of other services that are implemented by our other ministries. Also, we have online telemedicine. We have a number of examples that the business implements. We have Sber and other companies that try to In the time of high threats of pandemics, they implemented the service, and we have to understand that the state would be intact with these innovations and provide the possibility of rendering services online, which is very important in case with remote territories. Also, the financial system gives its contribution. I mentioned Sber and other banks that allow to open accounts online, pay online, to register legal persons online, and to contribute to the economy of the development of the regions. And that sometimes is not a financial story, but is connected with payments. It's unified school child's card and a whole number of different services. And I hope that it will expand, because we have basic demands, but we would like our distant territories or remote territories would be able to implement a number of wide range of possibilities that Digit can offer in other regions as well. So all this is necessary to provide infrastructurally, and then in the bank we have a few examples when the government and business in this question trying to do is the construction of Northern Stream. So it is defined by the conditions. We have to keep in mind the situation of High North, and colleagues from Rostelecom, first time in history, provided cables over the North Pole, and also our mobile operators try to provide connection 4G on remote locations. We have mobile project accessible internet for Chukotka autonomous region within the framework of a federal project, and also have a story with available internet this year, understanding the situation which the citizens faced. We developed a pilot project, available accessible internet, which allows free access to social significant services in the internet for all citizens of Russia. These and many other examples of implementation of the smart city projects. We have example of Rostelecom with the sensors of the road conditions, and we're trying to contribute to the regional digital development is a priority that is a part of national aim, and the work that is conducted by the regions. And I only wish good luck to all people concerned, and from our side we will be able to support our colleagues in different ways. So thank you very much. So thank you, Mikhail, for a very thorough speech. What is digital economy doing right now? It's a very important thesis that you mentioned, so that the government would keep up with regulating all the innovations our companies, our leading companies, proposing. Sometimes proposing very innovative and flagrant decisions, and your function is very important as well as a mediator, and we hope that for the benefit of all territories it would be done very quickly. I would like to give the floor to our foreign colleague, Director of Eastern Regional Office of Associated Trade Chambers and Industry of India, Periminderjit Kaur. Good afternoon. India is a huge country. We're speaking that Russia is a big country, but India is also SCO countries. They're all pretty much big, you know. And the development of remote territories is one of the basic tasks. What is the government of India doing, your association, in terms of developing of remote territories? What are the positive examples, and what are the most vivid projects that come into the Bank of Solutions? Thank you.
Thank you so much. At the outset, I would like to thank the organizer for inviting me. And it was really an honor and privilege to listening to all the experts here who have shared different thoughts of theirs in terms of infrastructure development or technology advancement. I would like to share my thoughts and my perspective from India, and specifically from the northeast of India. If I can just go to the next slide, please. The northeast of India is an extreme remote corner of India. And the reason why I thought of taking example from this region, because it's a very large region and a very diverse region. It has different cultures, ethnicities, and people are of the different stratas. So economic development is also very different. Adoption of technology is different. The inroad to investments in the region is different. And also my purpose of choosing this region for discussion today is because 96% of this region is connected with the international boundaries. So the international influence comes a lot to this region.
Поэтому много инвестиций приходит в этот регион. И, кроме того, это влияет на нашу местную региональную экономику. Поскольку у нас много удаленных территорий, естественно, это влияет на их экономику. Естественно, поскольку у нас много удаленных территорий в некоторых регионах страны, естественно, это влияет на экономику всех регионов, всего региона. Поэтому мы развиваем экосистему SME в Индии. Индия – это большая страна, и большая часть экономического вклада делает именно SME. И когда мы говорим об SME,
numbers which are based in the rural areas or the remote locations of the country, which are not as settled or as well built. And if I try to project, these companies engage not with the large projects or large assignments. They are the suppliers to the large assignments, and there are more than 6,000 industry products which these companies are engaging in. Whether it's textile, whether it's plastic, whether it's manufacturing, or whether it's a little bit of mining support, or whether it is basically dairy or agriculture or food processing or export or e-commerce. So there's a significant contribution which the small and medium companies are giving out to the large Indian ecosystem. So here's the slide which is basically talking about the Indian MSME ecosystem, how the split is there. So it's literally a 50-50 split between the urban and the rural economic segment. MSMEs are significantly present in the rural areas where the large industry is not that much vibrantly present. So when we talk of infrastructure development, or when we talk of energy utilization or the growth of the energy, the impact is quite significant with the rural economy. So over the recent years, there has been significant large infrastructure and economic projects which have been carried out by the government, and that has in turn helped build the micro entrepreneurs in these remote territories or the rural areas, as we call them. So this is the same slide which I just was referring to about the various industry segments which the MSMEs in India are engaged with. And as industry body, we work a lot with the Government of India, and we work a lot with the large organizations. We work a lot with the international agencies to help handhold these small and medium entrepreneurs so as that the development is uniform. The development is not restricted to certain large cities of the country. The development is taken to the remote territories which are either hilly terrain or are having large forest base and are not well connected, are not modernized, and don't have much of the technology support or the telecommunication support. So in order to bridge the gap, ASSOCHAM as an industry body, we work a lot with the government agencies. Now, precisely what else we do with this is that we handhold these various organizations, because we know, especially with the COVID, as one of our eminent speaker was speaking, the business continuity became a challenge. So innovating, ensuring there is access to finance, access to technology, there is compliances, there is availability of skilled labor, and there is a market access, whether the market, it's a domestic market or the international market. The market access is very important, and that's something we are trying to help and handhold these organizations and take forward their business continuity plan. For me, or from my organization's perspective, and which is in line with the Government of India's perspective, we are looking at some sustainable development solutions for the remote territories. Apart from just the large road infrastructure projects or the large telecommunication projects, it is important that multiple small infrastructure projects are being created. And we are working on such projects, and we are seeing that there is a direct relationship between the micro entrepreneurs and a development of small infrastructure. The industry clusters, the startup ecosystem, everything comes out very smoothly and favorably if these infrastructures are being developed. And we are working with the government, with these regional governments and also with the central government in India, basically to handhold these SMEs and develop the startup ecosystem. Industry clusters specifically for, say, plastic or handloom or leather. These are the various industry clusters we are developing. One significant manner in which the cooperation can be enhanced between the countries or the development of the territories can take place as basically with the support of, with greater focus on the smart technology solutions. We are working towards impacting healthcare, education, agriculture, financial literacy and financial inclusion by way of inbuilding technology and greater adoption of technology, ensuring the technology at a low cost is reaching out to these rural belts or the remote locations of the country. There are large organizations, if I would like to have this opportunity, quote a name. Tata is a very large organization of India, which is almost as old as my organization. We are 100-year-old, and so is Tata. They have come into the healthcare space during the COVID time to come up with Tata telemedicine. So what a lot of organization and even the government is doing is that they are offering telemedicine services, regional language chat services, remote connectivity, so that the healthcare can reach to maximum number of people in these distinct locations. Same comes for the education and the skill development. There are digital learning, continuous learning programs which are being adopted, and these models are successful models. They are showing results, and we will be very happy to support any organization or any region who would like to avail these learning platforms. Similar is our experience with the agriculture. We found that the e-procurement process started by Government of India has been a big relief for the farmers or the organization engaging with the producers, because fresh produce, India's strength lies more in the fresh produce. We don't have much of the food processing units, and especially with the remote locations, there is an acute shortage of the food processing units. So fresh produce has to be logistically connected in a very short frame of time, and the technology has played a huge role in that. By way of e-procurement of producers, we are able to support the people living in that region. And there's another effort which has been given a lot of focus by Government of India, which is on the financial literacy, financial inclusion, and using the technology for ease of operation, which is basically trying to take the government schemes and the government financial packages to the people. So it is very important that people know what their financial rights are, what they can achieve by being financially empowered. They should know the funding pattern which the government has. They should know what the government is trying to do for them. So with these kind of activities which we are engaged in partnership with the corporates and with partnership with the government, we are trying to resolve to some of the issues and the concern which the people in the remote locations have. And going forward, considering that this region has a lot of international boundaries around it, we would really like to take these initiatives and these low-cost technology solutions across the border to other countries and work with them jointly for the startup ideation, work with them for the rural tourism or the ecotourism, work with the joint clusters like handloom cluster, silk cluster, or pottery clusters, or leather clusters. So these are some of the wonderful experiences which we have and which we have seen the success. We would be very happy to replicate them across the border with any of the SCO member states or within India to the other regions which are having a similar setup as the northeast of the region. So this is what I wanted to talk about, and this region, the way it's evolving and developing, it's a learning model for the other regions and other states, and collectively, with the corporate support, with the government support under the PPP model, partnership models, or various other models which we can think together, such challenges which are being created by the COVID or existed can be handled. This is something I think I would like to bring on the table in front of all of you. Thank you so much.
Спасибо большое за такое тоже системное
представление. Thank you very much for this systematic presentation of the directions of development of distant territories, even though it's what was demonstrated is actual not only for remote territories, but for all kinds of territories. It's a very interesting experience. Thank you very much. But we move to Dmitry Zemlyansky. Taking into consideration that we have a specific of SCO countries, remote locations, not always low populated like in Europe. Last year we discussed in Great Britain their program, and they have the settlement of 20 people residing, 40 people residing. Let's take Norilsk in our country, 100,000 people, but it's a remote location. According to all the hallmarks, it's distant. And when there's wind, it's Can we identify types of Russian or maybe world remote locations, remote territories, and what formats of specific actions are needed in relation to them? Can we trace how different regions can implement different practices, or maybe on federal level, certain can we single out certain tracks, taking into consideration the specifics of remote locations? Thank you. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Thank you for the possibility to take floor here. I'm asking to launch the presentation and to open the second slide at once. When we started speaking about remote locations, remote territories today, we talked a lot about agricultural territories, cities located in suburban areas of huge agglomerations. But we have to understand that the problem of remote territories, it's very diverse. We have half periphery territories that are located in some not really explored zones that have no huge problems with transportation, but for them it is possible to use any kind of set of solutions that helps to implement social functions of the state. But there is a number of territories for which it is necessary to speak about different kind of solutions. What is that in Russia? First of all, it's remote and territories where you can hardly get to with the problem of transport approach. We have regions of high north, and we have Arctic zone on these territories, where in most cases we have no ground transportation system with other territories. We have to understand that in Russia this zone is the city of urban residents. We have mostly cities, not settlements, and we have three towns with the population of more than 100,000 people. And we have the second type of remote territories, for which we need a specific solution. It's highlands, where we have a lot of you can't have transportation all year round, and we have to implement solutions taking into account this harsh reality and specifics. Many things, starting with Soviet times, we have practices that we shouldn't forget about. So can I have another slide? First of all, it's northern shipment. It's a huge experience that we have in the country in the implementation of northern shipment in different kind of natural conditions and transportation accessibility. We have experience and practice, competences, skills that we have that different firms and state bodies have and certain people have on the implementation of northern shipment. They are unique, and we have to keep them in mind and use them. The second thing that is very important for northern territories is a migration policy that is implemented and is being implemented by the government on regulating the number of population on these territories. And we have two contradicting flows here. First, it's the system of preferences, northern preferences, to stimulate people to be in this hard natural reality, to provide sustainable functioning of economic. So the example of Norilsk is a unique city that has been experiencing outflow for a long time, and we could break it by means of financial stimulations and by means of social policy and the policy of local authorities. And then the program of resettlement of people from high north, people of older generation. Next slide, please. Another thing is very important is that remote territories are always they're very vulnerable to ecological impact and to social impact as well. If we speak about ecological situation, it's not violated natural conditions, and any kind of industrial effect is a serious challenge to them for sustainability of ecosystem. And we have different kind of practices here. The same is with social communities. They're very specific and they're very vulnerable to harsh social changes that usually take place in implementation, new huge projects. And we have a unique experience in Yakutia in Russia, where the legal basis was implemented the conduction of ethnological expertise. Next slide, please. It's another very important experience that we have in Russia, that we know in different forms help to implement in other countries. It's the experience of liquidation of emergency situations in remote territories. Since the Russian territory is unique and very wide, so we have different kind of regions where we provide, and specialists implement practically any kind of solution. Another slide, please. Another very important block is mobile form of service rendering for remote territories. If we speak, we spoke a lot of online service rendering today, especially for remote rural territories. But we shouldn't forget that certain kinds of services cannot be rendered, like first healthcare service. And Russian practice gives a wide range of solutions, which is good for highlands that are not accessible all year round. And the last slide, please. Today we spoke about energy. I would like to just make a small highlight for our remote territories. Diverse energy solutions are getting more and more importance for our remote territories. What is not always economically effective in other territories, for remote territories, for remote locations, where the energy system works on diesel fuel, where northern shipment makes a very expensive for the consumers electrical and heat energy. There we can implement new technologies, and we have this experience in Yakutia that function very effectively. And to sum it up, we have to clearly understand that we have solutions for remote rural territories, for densely populated territories, and it's a certain set of mechanisms. But there is a more dramatic situation with remote territories that are less populated, and in the far north and highlands, where we need more technologically complicated solutions to provide population with services and to cooperate the development of business. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dmitry, for this review.
Review of the existing technologies and solutions and systems of solutions, action plans in different situations. There were several references to the cultural development of territories. So I'm giving floor to Igor Kechter, who is going to talk about remote territories in terms of tourism. What are the prospects? What should be
не основа экономического развития. Мы знаем, что это скорее такое обеспечение
What should be done for
позволяющее действительно
creating jobs for territories to develop sustainably
разных странах.
in different states?
Вам слово.
Igor, please take the floor.
Спасибо. Добрый день, коллеги.
Dear colleagues,
Прошу поставить презентацию, если можно.
please set up the presentation.
У малых городов,
Small cities in Russia, we have almost 1,000 of them.
альтернативы, как
There are sometimes no alternatives
историю, связанную с туризмом,
except
привлечения
for
гостей в свой город.
attracting tourists.
Порой только единственное,
So
что
therefore,
остается малого
sometimes it's the only thing that a small city can do.
какого-то
There are no prospects for industrial development.
потенциала какого-то предприятия или еще других точек роста, это остается история как экспортный потенциал этого города. Потому что если посмотреть
It remains that the tourism becomes the only export potential.
возраст 400 тысяч лет, 500 лет,
Many cities are 4 or 5 centuries old. They are the gems that can make this territory interesting and attractive. Please take the next slide.
Очень симпатичный слайд. Это вот
Very nice slide.
когда мы видим облик малого
This is how small cities look like in the internet.
людей и гостей, которые когда побывали в этих городах.
This is what guests of these
Сегодня
cities
одна из главных задач, это решение, которое
upload on the internet. And what the association
той территории, представление
does is
как внешний облик, как
changes
социального,
the
как привлекательного,
image
именно
of the
применение к малым городам. Прошу следующий слайд.
cities.
И мы понимаем, что
We understand
те малые крупинки, которые есть, они
that
формируют
the smaller places that exist in Russia,
который выбрала ассоциация, называется так,
they exist.
великое малым.
And the strategy is called the great and the small.
Великого человека,
We will always find a great person in a small place with great nature, great
интересную историю великих детей.
peace, great children in the small cities. So the three main trends we use, three main focuses are
Это сохранившаяся историко-культурная
preserved historical landscape, people who were born there, the history that can be exported. It becomes a point of interest that can attract a client. So our association unites the cities who export tourism. We have existed for 12 years. We span 14 cities in 10 regions. They are across the city, across the country, but they are connected.
Порой руководство
Sometimes the management
не всегда
that comes
оценивает потенциал и то движение, которое началось
after the new elections
именно с этим.
does not see value in the tourism movement. Of course, there are a lot of infrastructural and social and utilities problems. But if you think a lot of small cities, utilities becomes profitable because there are tourists who use infrastructure and contribute to the municipality budgets more than the local people because they consume more and pay higher tariff. And it's something that helps the social infrastructure to develop.
На примере наших лидеров в туризме многие оценили
Many people estimate that many cities estimated how much tourism contributed. And because COVID influenced the economy and utilities, it turned out in some cities the utilities pay dropped by 60%.
у многих городов
And many
туризм
cities
вытащил их из той экономической ямы, которая могла быть. К примеру, есть у нас
agree that tourism
когда был
helped out the
закрыт
cities
завод, на котором работало 10 тысяч
to come out of the poverty. When in Uglitch, a cloth plant was closed, almost every family suffered, and some people needed to do something, and the only trend they chose is tourism development. And today, all people have jobs, there are a lot of hotels, there is tourist infrastructure. Though sometimes we should give a think
россыпь это граней и алмазов, которые есть на нашей
to the gems that we have in each territory. This is a summary of the prospects that we can have in terms of tourism. Thank you, Igor. Indeed, this is a very good potential. We know that we have 43 historical places in the list of the Ministry of Culture. Some cities are big ones, like Sevastopol and St. Petersburg, but most of these cities are small, like Suzdali, Gorokhovets, and so on. Those are small and sometimes very remote territories, which are hard to access. We know that the Ministry of Construction has had a building for 3 years now, and all the efforts that are taken by the association will allow, because we know that inner tourism has become a savior for those people who want to go somewhere. So I hope that COVID will become a new chance for our remote territories, which will be further required, will be further demanded by our citizens, so that we could develop international tourism as well for these small territories. I would also like to go back to Vladislav and maybe just give them the floor, because we're going to finalize. Please switch on the second slide. There was a technical issue, and I just wanted to say briefly describe the technological sphere and touch upon practical implementations. Technology that helps to develop remote territories in terms of life quality improvement. Geoscan is the national leader, which is a part of the Ministry Economic of Development projects. We're high-tech. We developed a single-cycle platform which works both within Russia and abroad. And when we take part in different work groups, we implement our technologies for different projects. For example, the 3D high-voltage system. This is any linear project, linear site, linear object, which should have a 3D twin, so that engineers could work on it in terms of map makers. Would you please switch the fourth slide? We have seen our developments for infrastructural solutions. For example, you could see two airplanes It's the largest project in Tula, 25,000 2D and 3D models for a number of sites.
Спасибо. Здесь представлены получаемые данные, то есть основная идея, что
So we have data here, and the main idea is that GeoScan can
с передачей материала различной направленности, и кроме 2D и 3D моделей это могут
render 2D and 3D models as well as very specific things, infrared imaging, and so on, because heat pipelines are elements of infrastructure. And on the left side, left picture, we have a case from Omsk, where we have made imaging of the heat pipelines. Without going deeper into technologies, I would like to say a few things that we have arrived at during our operation.
Данные дистанционного зондирования, если мы говорим, например, про беспилотную ракетосъемку, они дают именно вот такую хорошую подложку для решения ряда задач.
It helps to develop territories, to make pre-project solutions. These solutions exist abroad as well. The only thing that differs is how you approach them. For instance, if we talk about the development of remote territories, if we talk about new sites, models in the pre-project give advantage and efficiency of these works. If we deal with some particular cities, the development of territories is a serious issue because GeoScan is the only problem in Russia, company in Russia which surveyed Moscow for the purposes of further recultivation. We're renewing the image of Moscow through the revival of industrial zones and, for example, housing. In particular, what I have mentioned is that in Russia the only issue is that these aerial pictures, given that it's 1 centimeter precision, this is very high precision. This is very accurate technology. These data are very sensitive in terms of governmental security and development of these technologies. It contradicts with the very old legislation. We have very significant limitations in terms of data processing. In pre-project, there are no issues. We obtain all the permits very easily. The secrecy issue takes just one month. If we talk about the project themselves, we have to say no to our customers when they offer us to violate legislation. Anyways, it's the only negative factor of our development, but we're working on it because, for example, last year, unmanned air unmanned aerial vehicles use became softer in terms of legislation. So we hope that the technology will change and legislation will change along. And maybe in 5-10 years we will be able to say that we can make a 3D model of the entire Russia as a foundation for development of territories. It's only a matter of legislation and us. It's very interesting. Thank you very much. Together with Sergei Kuznetsov and other participants, we will discuss the experience of Moscow in terms of the development of industrial territories, and we will certainly talk about your experience, even though we know that this is a very relevant line of development because of the law on complex of integrated development of territories, which is underway. We will hope that we will use the technologies, including your technologies, not only in major cities, but also in smaller cities, because redevelopment and efficiency issues are the issues for all the cities, not only the big ones. And of course, the existing experience in terms of technologies will be used. As I suspect that we don't have time, given that we have so many speakers, I would like to thank all the speakers for the concentrated presentations. Thank Bashkortostan for hospitality. Like usually, I participated in urbanist forum here in July, and it's always high class. I would like to thank Natalia and the Department of Economic Cooperation. They really offer conditions for informal discussion. I think that now we have an opportunity to see an approach when we have an opportunity to bring these technologies and opportunities to the territories which need these technologies, so that we could create implementation mechanisms together with all the participants of this process. Have a fruitful work up to December 12th. Have a good mood and health. Thank you.